Hello, everybody, and welcome to Max Earners with M&T. I am LeatherneckMike along with Tstols. Again, this week we're talking about the end of the season. Playoff week is going on right now. We know the matchups for Saturday, but we're talking about a little bit how the season went, the regular season, and maybe talk about awards. That award show is coming up a week from Sunday. We want to talk about that. There were a few surprises this year. We'll get into that as well. But before we get any further, I do want to bring in the other half of the show. It's Tstols. What's up, Stolzy?
What's up, Mike? A pretty exciting day of playoffs has just concluded, and we're going to take a look a little bit earlier than the postseason, but the regular season today. A long one, a long season, a long playoff day, but excited to get back on the show.
So we'll get right into things here. I will start out with the Legends Conference this season. Here's how the Legends went. Out east, it was New York who won the division. Then Outer Banks in second. New York 167, Outer Banks 63. Then Buffalo and Providence rounded out the division. I thought Providence was slight and Buffalo both, frankly, were a little bit worse than I thought they were. But other than that, I think the East shook out kind of how I thought it would, except I would have had Outer Banks and New York flipped at the beginning of the year. And then out west, San Antonio, Maui, Vancouver, Boise, just as I predicted, but a lot closer than I said it was going to be. San Antonio at 58 and 50, Maui winning game 109 and game 110 to get into the playoffs, and Vancouver losing game 109 to get into the playoffs. If you will recall our season preview show, I thought Vancouver was going to be a lot worse. But in Boise was down in the Drex. They finished with the number 2 pick transferred to Cancun with 25 wins. And I think the surprising thing for me in the Legends, if there really is a surprise, well, there's it's two things, but really it's kind of related to the same. I think Vancouver outperformed a little bit. Now this is definitely their last year of being able to do anything, but I think Vancouver outperformed what I thought they would a little bit, and then New York being better than Outer Banks, I didn't really see that. I thought it was going to be the other way. Now I thought the win totals would be similar, but I thought it was going to be the other way around. So I think there's two small surprises for me in the Legends this year in terms of overall standing, and it's Vancouver punching a few games above weight, and same thing with New York and OBX because of OBX's terrible start to the year. Stoles, you got the champions, the conference you now inhabit from your rookie season this year. What'd you think of there this year?
Yeah, oh boy, it was really fun to be a pitcher in the Champions East when you had to face Nashville, Lunar Base, and Detroit together. An absolutely dreaded trio to deal with. And obviously, Indianapolis was going to be on the bottom rung, but they actually performed surprisingly well and had a really strong final week, being over 500 for the first 3 days and finishing above 40 wins. Detroit, Lunar Base, Nashville, all above 60 wins. And funny enough, it's only Lunar Base who now stay alive in the playoff hunt. But yeah, not a big surprise. We knew these three teams would be good. And in the other half of the champions, well, is going to be Death Valley's champions West to rule with an iron fist. And New Orleans and Cancun had a good fight, but neither team was able to find their way into the playoffs. Cancun did finish above 500, and New Orleans were a little bit off pace, losing out to Detroit for that final wildcard spot. Seattle was openly tanking. They're looking to get one of the early picks, and hopefully they'll find another player to continue their rebuild. And they ultimately, I think, were runners. Did they get the first overall pick? I got to
Yes,
double
they did.
check.
They had the
They did. So,
tiebreaker. They
yes.
got one overall. Yes.
So they won the first overall pick with the tiebreaker. So 2 years in a row, Seattle will get the first overall pick. Back when they had back-to-back overall picks, that's when they had gotten Jormungandr Ragnarok and Athena Arya, and eventually won some World Series with them. Last year they got Shohei Ohtani. The question will be, who do they grab this season? It'll be exciting, but yeah, the Champions was a tough conference.
So, what's your surprise for the year in your champions?
Surprising the Champions. Well, I guess for teams, if we're still doing the standings thing, because I got a real sort of surprise that we can mention later.
Okay.
Um, I guess it was Indy doing that good. Because I can't lie, I think our pitching really punched above our weight partially. I mean, Chapler was lights out from the bullpen. That was expected. For most of the season, I was doing okay, and Choi was really solid. But really, the rotation was just. But really, I think it was just us being able to get wins when it mattered most because our bats were quiet. Apart from the breakout of Adam Rage, we probably shouldn't have been a 40-win team, but we just found ways to win games, and I'm very proud of the team for being able to do that.
And we'll
So
see
I
going into
guess,
next season how well you guys are going to do, whether you continue the upward climb or not. But 40 wins
see,
is a good benchmark for you
we
considering that conference you're in.
it's also the best season we've had in 10 seasons, but
Yeah.
we're probably going to be worse next year. We're losing Leahy, and that's going to pretty much leave our bats completely dead. But the big thing is we've got our players. We've got the long-term build. We've got Hypocrites. We've got me. We've got Wheeler coming up. We've got a lot of players who are going to be faces of this team in the future that are now just ready to gain TPE and get to be competitive. It's where Maui was. It's where Cancun was. We're not looking for prospects anymore. We're now waiting for the prospects to develop. So we'll probably be, I think, maybe 34 wins, 35 wins next season. A little bit further down, maybe. We could also still hover around 40, depending on how strong the rest of the division and conference remains. But the big thing is that we're looking long term, and there's a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah, there's that germination period that you have to have as a team, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. Cancun is almost at the end of it. Maui this year with their
Oh,
even
Cancun's at the end of it. Period. They're going to be, yeah, they're basically where Maui was last season,
well, but
except they didn't punch above their weight. Maui,
they're
like
not.
last year, finished their germination period and punched well above their weight to challenge for the playoffs. And this
Yeah.
year was the first year they could literally step through that contention window. And
Well,
again, disappointing that they got swept, but they'll be back.
right. I was gonna say I don't know if Cancun is done with germination yet because they haven't made. They didn't
Yeah.
get above
Oh, and
100
actually, I will
and
mention,
Maui
I
did.
believe they are. Aren't they losing Johnny Quest too?
That in a couple of seasons' time, yes. He
Okay, or
announced that
yeah,
he
because I
will
know
head
one of the
UFA, but they
yeah
have so
one of
much
them one
pitching.
of the players one of the players opted out, I believe.
So yeah,
So
there were some
that
opt-outs
was.
for re-signs and all kinds of
Mhm.
fun stuff over there. But yeah, there's gonna be some great teams in the future. I think this will be the season where Maui and Cancun. I think you're right. I mean, they started like this is the early days of their era of the league. Um, so yeah, it was an exciting season for some young teams. A bit of a goodbye to Vancouver, in my opinion. And I think there's a chance that it's a really solid goodbye to NOLA too. I don't see how they keep it together. So a goodbye to two old contenders and a hello to two brand new contenders into the ring for next season and beyond. That kind of started to show this season. Hey, we're here. We're not what we once were. What was your other surprise, Stoles?
Yeah, and if we're going to jump over to the surprise here, it was HR Hypocrites. He was honestly someone I would definitely consider for a pitcher of the year contender. Absolutely dealing on the mound. And again, he's a pretty good player already. He's got 96 stuff. He's got 68 movement, 74 control, 4+ pitches with a 90 circle change. That spells usually pretty good success, but you don't always see a pitcher like that with just under 300 BABIP getting a 340 ERA, an even better 338 FIP, and a 275 Sierra with a 10.5 K through 9. That was among the best in the champions. He was my player surprise of the season, just breaking out into being one of the league's best arms. Really excited because unfortunately Paz is rotten Simluck, so Hypocrites can really kind of fill in that role of a well-performing ace.
Some really good performers. We will talk about those next when we get into the awards section of this show. Max Earners with M&T, LeatherneckMike, and Tstols. Keep it right here. We'll be right back.
Do you like money? Do you like risk? Do you like basing your ability to train each week on the capricious whims of the sim gods? If so, come on down to the PBE Casino. Here at PBEC, we have pretend sportsbooks, real sportsbooks, user bets, risk it all despite that rival player. And if good old-fashioned gambling just isn't risky enough for you, we even have a stock market. You can win it all with the PBE Casino. PBE head office heavily condones overindulgence in gambling. Always gamble with fake money. If you or a loved player suffer from PBE sportsbook addiction, make sure you get predictions right. Remember to tip your bankers.
Back on Max Earners with M&T. I am LeatherneckMike. That is Tstols. We just went over the season. Now we're going to go over the players from the season and take a look at the awards for the year. Maybe what we think will happen with the major awards in the PBE, the Legends and the Champions. Player of the Year, MVP, and Pitcher of the Year, more commonly known as the Cy Young Award. And I will start off with a quick little aside, and I say, I'll ask you your opinion on this, Stolzy, in a second. I think that pitchers should be eligible for the MVP. This was a hot debate a couple of years ago because Wendy Marvell didn't win MVP with a sub-2 ERA and a hitting first league. What's your take, Stoles, on pitchers and the pitcher of the year versus the most valuable player?
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely think pitchers should be eligible for MVP. Makes a lot of sense. There's no real reason that they shouldn't be eligible. I mean,
it's called MVP,
yeah, and I think
not MVB.
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing as well, is that the problem is, of course, there's no real solo batting award that's like the Cy Young, but also there's a trillion other batting awards from Silver Slugger to Golden Glove that already do it. Pitcher of the Year is the only award pitchers really can get apart from Reliever of the Year. So, yeah, it's kind of just a weird mix where you got a lot of secondary awards for batters, but MVP is the only major main award. Pitchers, however, they have two major potential awards if they have a good enough season to win MVP, but then no other awards apart from the Cy Young or Sawamura, or let's make a fun name for the PB equivalent.
The Shoto Todoroki probably is what it should be called, or the Victoria's Secret for the Legends and the Shoto for the Champions, or to represent the eras or something of the sort. But
yeah, something like that. Something either probably I'd say argue Arya or Todoroki. That would probably be.
But
A
either
good idea.
way, getting into things, why don't we start? Since we're talking about pitching, why don't we start with the pitcher of the year? Who do you have for your champions pitcher of the year?
Well, taking a look at some of the data, it is a pretty tough sort of guess. I'll say that taking a look at the stats, it's probably it comes down to, I think, three potential players. You first got Parco for his season in New York. 3.15 ERA, 160 innings, 3.7 or 2.7 FIP, and a very good season overall in every single category.
So you're going to Legends here, just to be clear.
Yes, okay, Legend. All right. Well, I was going the order in the document. Yeah,
Somebody get checked for the mark on the sheet.
Yep. Well, also because you decided to throw a curveball going champions first when they were in the bottom half of the page. But I'm going to continue with Legends just to go with the flow.
Yeah, so it's the Legends, to be clear.
Yeah. Start with the weaker conference first.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. So with the Legends, of course, Parco could be a person, but my vote would either go for Arya for continuing the good vibes, getting a 2.90 ERA with really good numbers alongside it. Third best innings pitch with 183. The only downside for Arya is the higher FIP. Also, even though I definitely think Arya could get it, my pick would probably be Gianna Morgan. 181 innings, 321 FIP. Best walk through 9, a 7.72 K to walk rate. Incredible season. Best WAR in the Legends. It's got to be Morgan, I think, this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm pretty sure it's Gianna. I mean, I guess there's a case for the others, but I feel like Gianna is reasonably clear. All right, let's switch conferences. Let's go to the stronger conference, as you and I both put it. Let's talk about the champions, and I think this race is as strong as the conference is.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I kind of feel a little disappointed that DoubleDub forgot to include or accidentally included Johnny Quest over our very own HOR Hypocrites for the fourth best pitcher, which is a little bit surprising. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Quest has been dominant for Cancun, but I think the FIP at 374 just takes him out of the race because he also was a little bit further behind in strikeouts. I think this one's kind of clear cut and dry. Or actually,
really?
no,
okay.
not. I mean, I don't know. I was looking for a second. It's tough. It
Yeah.
it really is tough. I've just contradicted myself completely. But it's either Parker Parton or Right into Dirt. Right into Dirt had the best ERA, a very respectable FIP, great WAR on one of the more dominant teams. Parton, on the other hand, great FIP, a good ERA. Again, 3.18 isn't anything to laugh at. That would be third best or fourth best from the Legends League up there. It's worst on this list of pitchers that are listed in the Champions, alongside a great K through walk rate and even better WAR. But I'm going to go with my Team Japan teammate from the WBC with Right into Dirt.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I think it's Wright versus Parton, and it becomes the battle of what happened versus what the stats say should have happened. Because with what happened, it's right in the dirt. With what the stats say should have happened, Parton was the best pitcher, so it's the ERA versus FIP clash, and I'm personally interested to see how that turns out. I agree with you. I think it's right in the dirt. It's a sub three. There's two sub threes, but it's a better sub three than Mano Wright. So I think it's him in the end, but I'm interested to see from a voting perspective what happens because, and you will come to, if you haven't already, Stoles, you will realize this as we go further on. This is a Saber is the Bible of this league.
Yeah, and I don't blame him.
so
Saber is
so it'll be
always good.
interesting.
But I will mention another thing. Parker Parton Sierra, which is skill in attractive ERA, which basically also equates for hard hit balls alongside things. Parton leads the champions with 262. Right into Dirt is only at 285. So that is actually a pretty close race. In terms of sabermetrics, there is not a lot separating Parton and Into Dirt.
Yeah, it's incredibly
So,
close. So
if you want to give the nod over to Into Dirt, you could, but yeah, Parton looks really good on a lot of those stats.
and for the
I
record,
personally,
Parton has a higher WAR by .1,
yep,
so it's incredibly
by
close
one.
there too.
Yeah, but I will also mention one little thing as well. I'm personally the type of guy. Now, I, for meme, was absolutely hyping up pitcher wins when I was chasing the record at State College. But while wins and losses and a lot of the key like those stats don't really matter, Parker Parton 17-13, Into Dirt 17-18, innings pitched is one I really like. Because it shows you that if you have more innings, you go deeper into games. You know how to hang around longer. Parton only won 69 innings. Right into Dirt had 188. I think that is something you gotta factor in as well, where Into Dirt was able to go deeper and stay this strong.
And that's certainly a fair argument to me because that adds extra value to you because not only do you pitch great, but you do it over a longer set. There's 2 games worth of innings there that a weak Nashville bullpen had to pitch that a stronger Lunar Base bullpen didn't have to pitch because of how Wright did. But so off of pitcher of the year into the MVP, I will start with the champion since we just covered it. It's a really tight race. We got 3 guys that all have 6.1 WAR. If you like the hitting, it's max power, and it's not even close. If you like everything, it's Larry B. Burnside. If you like defense and stolen bases, it's B. Fry. So you can kind of pick whatever you want. They're all 6.1. You can't vote on WAR. So then it's what do you like? In my personal opinion, and I'll get your thoughts on this in a second, Stoles, because I want to hear what you have to say about this. I think it is max power, and here's why. First baseman, I have a beef with WAR. I have a beef with the adjustment of WAR. And the way that I counter the beef with the adjustment of WAR, if you play first base and you have equal WAR as somebody who played a different position, in this example, it's Max Power who played first, and B. Fry who played second, and Larry B. Burnside who played left field. The first baseman gets the biggest WAR debuff, so the fact that they made it to 6.1, I say they had the better season. Also, nearly 200 OPS plus is kind of insane. Defense and base running and everything else aside, I say it's max power. I think the MVP for the champions is max power. I don't think a pitcher is good enough this year. As great a season as Wright had, he probably finishes 5th behind all these guys. But I say it's power, and in my opinion, as a voter, first base actually benefits him here because of the handicap he's had to overcome. Who do you have, Stoles? What would you do? Would it be Max Power for you?
Right before I start, I need to just quickly kind of remind everyone of some of the leaderboards really quickly from our league history. In a season, we have only had 6 seasons where a player has hit 40 home runs. Tedford Woofington was the last player to do so with New Orleans back in 2051. Max Power just did it here in 2056. And yes, Max Power is the MVP. And again, I think that base running and defense are definitely things you need to seriously think about when building a team. When you're looking at players and judging them based on how good they are, obviously you want to take a look at that. But when you're looking at awards, you shouldn't be trying to make an argument that, oh, look at Burnside's ZR in left field. That is what puts him over Max Power. No, no, it doesn't. And again, no disrespect to Burnside. Incredible season, 1,000 OPS for not being a pure power hitter. That's not the easiest thing to do. And again, Beef Rye, great season overall, 875 OPS, being good defensively. Nothing to laugh at. I love discipline, 61 walks. I'm a huge fan of that. But this is Max Power, and this was an incredible season from Power. Would have been historic if he hadn't had a little hiccup closer to the end. A dominant start, a good finish, almost 200 OPS plus, WRC plus. It's Power and no one else, in my opinion.
Okay, a much stronger feeling from Tstols here, and again, I don't mean to wish-wash on it. I do think he's the MVP, but again,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder again if Saber is the Bible. The
Yeah.
war is
But I think,
6.1. So then you get
again,
down to the nitty-gritties and people's personalities come out when you aren't voting based off only war because you can't because it's tied. I think Max Power is going to win the award because I think the default is going to be the 40 jacks, which we've
yes.
seen almost never. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's going to be him, but it's going to be an interesting race. And I do hope the voting is close
Oh, yeah. I definitely
because
think the
they
voting
deserve
should be
the
close.
other guys deserve recognition. I don't think this is a blowout vote or anything. Um, so yeah, I think now the other conference. Anything else to say on champions, by the way, before I move
Nope,
on?
that's it. I've got.
The other conference for me, the Legends. This is really difficult. This is really interesting. So we have the offensive choice, which is Bob Abbott person. 5.7 WAR, 162 WRC plus, a 974 OPS. Led the league in doubles with 55 total bases and runs created per 27 outs. Then there's Whiskey Fuse of Providence, whose team didn't do as well, but a 5.5 WAR, more than 30 doubles, 20 home runs, 45 stolen bases, second in total bases, only to Babbitt top 5 in runs scored, so him himself, a great all-around player, a package player, much like Fry. And then there's the more interesting candidate. And the reason that this a much more interesting candidate to me is because somebody else won the award based off of doing this several seasons ago. Chris Schneider broke the stolen base record. He stole 112 bags, led the league in walks and runs, and he didn't commit an error the entire year in right field. Is right field defense the most important thing on earth? No. Is having no errors in any position, playing every inning, every game, every day impressive? Yeah, I don't care if you're at first base or you're at shortstop. That's an impressive statistic. And also 112 stolen bases. That is a lot, and it's not like he was some terrible hitter. 265, 370 OBP, and an 802 OPS. Is that earth-shattering? No. Is that typical MVP numbers? No. But everything else is what was atypical. I personally, as a voter, I would give it to Schneider. I think Stoles, you're going to disagree, but I would give it to Schneider because I do think that in the way that MVP voting is done, there is something to the extraordinary season. And this is the extraordinary season. And also, when you think of value in a player, Schneider was batting in front of Babipperson, if I'm not incorrect there. So Babipperson, some of his stuff looks really nice because he had such a great player in front of him. And when you steal 112 bags, there is so much value in going from first, then getting to second because you stole a base, and then one of the million guys in the Outer Banks lineup behind you got a single and you scored. That creation without a pitch needing to be thrown or a hit needing to be made, when you do it at such an incredibly high rate, I do think is worth a lot. I say MVP of the Legends is Schneider. It's a hot take, I think, but I think it's Earth.
So I'll have to say, Mike, is I disagree with you. Because you're wrong in assuming that I disagree with you. Because I agree. It's Schneider,
Really?
I think, the
Okay.
Champions MVP. Do I think he'll win? I think the voters may give it to Babbitt-Person because
I think
those are better
I agree.
sabermetric stats. But my vote would be every day of the week. Mainly because, again, Babbitt-Person, good season. Earth-shattering? Not really.
No.
22 home runs, pretty good. Good hitting, okay defense, or actually mediocre defense, but hey, he's at a position where defense doesn't really matter, and he's also backed up by a very good team overall. The big thing is that Schneider put up great defense, and again, that's also not a big deal, but 112 stolen base. Normal base running, that's fine. That's a good cherry on top when you want to look at a player like TGP. You get 112 stolen bases in a year. That's impressive. That's
over.
gotta tip the
That's
cap.
1.001 or whatever, but it's over a stolen base a game.
Exactly. That's just a wild number that the only other person had been Sarah with Anchovy.
Yeah.
That was the only other player to get in that ballpark. And in one season, Earth said, yo, let me start stealing bases, and literally went out and set the record. And there's also one other thing that people seem to forget. Earth led the league in walks and had only 89 strikeouts for 504 plate appearances. To be at the bat that many times, avoid striking out over 100 times, and get on base with a walk 68 times is equally impressive. And sure, it's not 600 slugging from Babbitt-Person, but again, this is Babbitt-Person. If you pass up on an MVP of this season, I don't think you'll have people screaming, oh, Babbitt-Person was robbed. Babbitt-Person was the clear MVP. No, you won't. Is going to be the feel-good MVP pick if it's voted for. And again, if Babbitt-Person wins, you'll have people saying, oh no, Alikh should have won. But also, there would be like, okay, it's not a complete daylight robbery as well.
Yeah.
And by the way, sorry, Whiskey Fuse, get out of the list. You're not necessarily competing. You're just a weaker version of Babbitt-Person and a weaker version of Schneider. Good season, though, and hopefully you can come back next year. But yeah, I think Schneider is my pick for the MVP, and it's just an incredible season.
So that's interesting. We agree on Legends MVP then, because I thought this is where we disagree. But the one thing I
thought it was where we disagree too.
the thing that I will say as we wrap it up here. So if you had max power, if it was a league award, not a conference award, if you had max power versus Schneider, what would you do?
My
Because
Alikh
now
bias would be
the
Alikh
offense
because
is
I love it.
different.
Okay.
The offense is different now. It's another
My-
level with power. So I know what you would vote for with your heart, but I'm talking about your head.
Yep, as I was trying to say, my heart would say Alikh, but if I was looking blindly and not the player, it would probably be max power.
Yeah, that's
Like
what I
again,
kinda
because this is
figured.
a historic season from power. And listen, knowing it's Alikh, I 100% would want him to win a league MVP in this case. But again, who is the better player? It's max power. It's
Yeah,
like
if
you
do the
can't
A
argue
and
that.
B, yeah. If you do the A and B thing, player A, player B, yeah, I would do the same. I would do power as well. Well,
Yeah,
that's
you can't argue it, so it's a shame.
That's another, as I started there, a little preemptively. That's another great edition of the Max Earners with M and T, recorded once again late at night because somebody enjoys going on the streams. Nice job tonight, Stolzy. We will be back in, I think it's 2 weeks now. I believe it's a bi-weekly schedule. We will come back and talk about the draft, is what I believe is next on the calendar. Thank you to our entire crew. DoubleDub, the producer and researcher for this week, Bayley, the graphical editor, and Alikh, the video editor. Thank you very much, Tstols, for joining me today. Everybody have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Bye-bye, everybody.